the gathering storm. He had the crown at last. He had the ancient throne. He had the dream. He was ready to lift his old country up into the modern world and make it great. But he did not have much time, because while the new emperor was building schools and dreaming of the future, a war machine was being built across the sea. A hungry ruler was sharpening his weapons, and soon a shadow would fall over Ethiopia, a shadow that would bring a horror this land had never seen before. The clock was already ticking, and Haile Selassie did not yet know how little time he had left. When Haile Selassie became emperor, he looked at his beloved Ethiopia, and he saw two things at the very same time. He saw a country he loved with his whole heart, ancient, proud, free, full of faith and history. But he also saw a country that was far behind the rest of the world. Most of the people could not read. There were very few real schools. There were almost no good roads. The army carried old rifles and rode horses, while the armies of Europe had tanks and airplanes and cannons. And Haile Selassie knew a hard truth. He knew that being brave was not enough anymore. Brave men on horses could not win against airplanes. If Ethiopia wanted to stay free, it had to become modern and fast. So the emperor got to work. He did something that had never been done in Ethiopia's long history. He gave the country its first ever written set of rules for how it should be governed. Before this, whatever the emperor said was simply the law. Now, for the first time, some of those rules were written down on paper for everyone. It was a small step, but it was a beginning. He built more schools. He worked to bring in electricity and telephones and hospitals. He tried to build a modern army, and he pushed hard against one of the oldest and cruelest customs in the land. He worked to bring an end to slavery in Ethiopia, setting people free and making it against the law to buy and sell human beings. He wanted to pull his country, gently but firmly, out of the past and into the future. But change is slow, and change is hard. Many of the old, powerful nobles did not want anything to change at all. They liked their old power. They fought him quietly at every turn. And so Ethiopia moved forward, but slowly, too slowly, because the danger was coming faster than the emperor could build. Now let us cross the sea and look at the man who wanted to destroy everything Haile Selassie was building. His name was Benito Mussolini, and he was the ruler of Italy. Mussolini was a proud and dangerous man. He ruled his country with an iron fist, and he had a giant dream burning inside him. He dreamed of building a huge empire, like the great Roman Empire of long ago. He wanted Italy to be feared. He wanted Italy to be mighty. And to do that, he wanted to conquer lands in Africa. And when Mussolini looked at the map of Africa, his eyes landed on Ethiopia. There were two reasons he wanted it. The first reason was simply hunger. Ethiopia was one of the very last free and independent countries left in all of Africa. Almost everywhere else had already been taken by European powers. Ethiopia was the great prize still standing. But the second reason was older and darker. It was revenge. Remember Adwa? Remember that battle years before when a European army marched into Ethiopia and was crushed? That army had been Italian, and Italy had never gotten over the shame of it. For Mussolini, conquering Ethiopia was not just about land. It was about wiping away that old defeat. It was about pride. So Mussolini began to move his soldiers and his guns and his airplanes into the lands right next to Ethiopia. Quietly, steadily, he was getting ready. And then he found his excuse. There was a place out in the desert near the border where there were some wells of water. Italian soldiers and Ethiopian soldiers ended up in the same spot, and fighting broke out. Some men were killed on both sides. Now, it was a small clash far out in the middle of nowhere, but Mussolini pretended to be furious. He acted as if Ethiopia had insulted the whole nation of Italy, and he used that little fight as his excuse to prepare for a full war. Haile Selassie could see exactly what was happening. He was not fooled for 1 second. He knew Mussolini didn't really care about a fight at a desert well. He knew the truth. Italy was coming to swallow his country whole. So now the emperor had a choice to make, and what he chose tells you exactly what kind of man he was. He could have simply prepared for war and nothing else, but instead, Haile Selassie did something that showed the whole world how much he believed in peace and fairness. He turned to the League of Nations. Remember, the League of Nations was that new club of countries from all over the world. They had all made a solemn promise to one another. They had promised that if a bully nation ever attacked a peaceful nation, all the other nations would stand together and stop it. That was the whole point of the League, to end wars forever. And Ethiopia was a member. So Haile Selassie stood up and said, in effect, I am not going to just start a war. I am going to trust the system. I am going to trust the promise. Italy is threatening a peaceful nation, so let the nations of the world do what they promised to do. Let them protect us. He believed in that promise with his whole heart. He truly believed the world would keep its word. But the world did not keep its word, because the big, powerful countries of Europe did not want to upset Mussolini. They were more worried about their own problems. They gave speeches, they held meetings, they wrote letters, but when it came to actually stopping Italy, they did almost nothing. They put a few weak punishments on Italy, punishments so soft that Mussolini just laughed at them and kept right on going. Haile Selassie waited for the world to keep its promise, and the world quietly looked away. And then the waiting was over. In October, Italy attacked. A giant modern war machine came pouring across the border into Ethiopia. Tanks, big guns, and most terrifying of all, airplanes, filling the sky, dropping bombs on people who had never even seen a plane before. And the Ethiopians rose up to defend their home. They were incredibly brave. Farmers, herders, warriors, they grabbed whatever weapons they had and they ran to fight for their country. They fought with everything in their hearts. In some places, they even managed to push the Italians back and win victories that shocked the world. But courage was not enough against machines. The Italians had a level of weapons the Ethiopians simply could not match. And when the Italian army started to struggle, when the brave Ethiopians fought harder than they expected, Mussolini gave an order so evil that it shocked decent people everywhere. He ordered his planes to use poison gas. They sprayed clouds of burning poison down from the sky. It rained down on soldiers. It rained down on villages. It rained down on women and children and old people and cattle. It poisoned the grass. It poisoned the rivers where people drank. It burned the skin and the eyes and the lungs of anyone it touched. It was one of the cruelest things done in war in that whole century. And it was being done to people who were only trying to defend their own homes. The brave Ethiopian army, poisoned and bombed from the sky, began to break. Slowly, the Italians pushed deeper and deeper into the country, and soon They were marching toward the capital city itself. Haile Selassie had fought. He had led his men in battle himself. But now he faced the most painful choice of his entire life. He could stay and die with his city and be forgotten, or he could leave and carry his country's cry for help to the whole world and force the nations who had looked away to finally look him in the eye. He made his choice. He would go to Geneva in Europe, where all the nations gathered. He would stand in front of them, face to face, and he would make them listen.